Don't worry about it. You're ready to do lots on your 4 points today. So what we're going to start with is 4 points. And what we're looking for is sort of through the course of this morning, you finding what Feldenkrais would call your personal 4 points. So the 4 points for you that work related to your structure, your function, your history, and that they're 4 points that not only give you stability, but they allow you to move. So we're going to start thinking about that idea a little bit over the next few days, and then we'll get Feldenkrais to do a whole talk on it on Friday. I have. Getting him in personally. It's a great talk. I think it's one of his really good ones. And I think like all of his talks, what we'll be doing is stopping it every now and then so that you really have to get an experience of what he's talking about. No? Because that's what this work's about. No? You have to be able to do something to really understand it. So that's what we're playing around with. How do I find this place where I'm stable, I can support myself, but I'm not too stable? So that I'm stable and I'm movable, or what Feldenkrais would call dynamic stability. So you don't need to move your mats necessarily for this one, so up you come. And let's start by, if we bring our little friend forward, some of you might have to manoeuvre to see him. So could you, for a start, just feel this margin going from the bottom of your breastbone or sternum, coming around where all these lower ribs are coming into insert, coming around, and then there's 2 low ribs here that don't attach to any bone at the back, but you'll feel them. So you're just mapping sort of for yourself that, the shape, the curve of where your chest is. And really being interested, remember for those of you who were here in November, we started to make distinctions about touch. The sort of touch that was informative, the sort of touch that helped you to listen to yourself more, or to listen to someone else. And we'll go through those a little bit later today. But really, so you're trying to inform yourself. What you're doing is using another sense. So you're using touch, which is the extraceptors, to inform you about yourself. Once you've done that, could you then trace out the curve of your pelvis from the front, coming around to the back? And what you're feeling for, is there a difference one side than the other? Does one side feel easier to find? Or does the tissue one side feel a bit thicker or softer? Or so again, you're making distinctions. Yes, you're tracing an outline, but you're noticing, just seeing what else comes to your attention. Okay. So now, if you can, one thumb on somewhere on the bottom of your rib cage and your fingers sort of on the top of your pelvis, so sort of spanning this gap here for yourselves. Everyone's fingers should be able to reach. Huh? And feel if you were going to bring them closer together. What would you have to do to bring your pelvis and your ribs closer together at the front? And really notice, do you move your ribs more than your pelvis? Or your pelvis more than your ribs? And you can play around with that a little bit. What happens if I do move my ribs more? Or if I do move my pelvis more? How does that change what's happening in your back? So are some more familiar for you than others? Yeah, your back will elongate, but can you feel it elongates differently depending on how much movement happens in each? Different areas of your back will respond. Okay, so the next one is at the side. So if you can have one hand on your lower rib cage and one on the pelvis again at the side. And now you're thinking about bringing the ribs and your pelvis together on one side and feeling what happens on the opposite side as you do that. And again, you're noticing, do my ribs do more of the movement? Does my pelvis do more of the movement? So how do you change your torso in this sideways? Notice, do your legs respond to that? Are your legs soft? And can you be really clear? So some of you are doing it beautifully, but you're more doing that. Huh? You're not actually lifting the pelvis. It's more you're just sort of doing a shift to the side. Can you feel the difference between the pelvis lifting or just simply... Yes. Absolutely. It's really different. It's a really, for many of us, a really interesting distinction to make. So you can really feel as one side gets shorter, the other side gets longer. No? And because your hands are there, you can probably feel, just as some of you did, the muscles, how to allow the skeleton to move, the muscles must change their shape. And the muscles get their messages from the brain, from your brain. Okay, next one, last one. Well, not the last, but back rib to back of your pelvis. Huh? Well, they are real ribs, Barbara. Yeah, the unattached rib. Well, somewhere on the back, wherever you can find a rib, basically. And could you now begin to bring them closer together? Huh? And again, notice, do you do more with your ribs or more with your pelvis? And what has to happen at the front? If your back's coming closer together, what does your front have to do? And again, you might feel the same thing. If the ribs do a lot, you'll feel a different part of you lengthen at the front than if your pelvis does a lot. So again, you're simply investigating what you do. Just bringing to your attention Something that maybe you've never thought of doing in your lives. Okay, last one. So what would happen, you can have your hands wherever you like, you can move them around. So actually, no, let's do it this way. So you bring together at the front, and then you go, so you're going to do a circle. And go at your speed. I was talking to one of my brothers last night, and he was saying, he said, I just had to do this talk. And he said, I used one of Feldenkrais's quotes. And I go, woohoo! And I said, which one? He said, you know that one? You know, and I'm going, oh, yeah, there's a few, Tim. And he goes, you know. He said, you know that one? If you know what you're doing, you can do what you want. Yeah. If you know what you're doing, that'd be an interesting one to a group of people. If you know what you're doing, you can do what you want. You can do what you want.
First we have to undo all the unknowing. No, I refuse to spend the rest of my life undoing a bunch of shit.
Good on you.
I just want a different way. That is so fucking good.
I love it. I must admit I'm a bit with you. Over time I've learned it's much better. Just keep going. And you know, it's true, Feldenkrais, really don't focus on your problems. Go with what you do well and keep making it better. Keep making it better, what you already do well, and everything will improve. It's the absolute opposite to, as you said, looking at your problems. I think most of us have done that for quite a long time anyway. Okay.
I've just about given up on everything comes to us for a reason. Bat it away.
Good. Okay. So now you've got maybe a little bit more an idea of some of these shapes that you can make in your torsos. And this is just belly dancing. But it's really interesting because what the big, this is just for your interest, the big muscles that hold all of this together are basically the abdominals. They're the ones that do most of there's lots of others, but they're the ones that are designed in a million different directions to allow our torso to move in all these different ways. And again, many of us get very habitual contractions in here. Okay, so now that we've done your could you now, again, find where you want your 2 feet to be, because you're going to start reaching forward and thinking about all these shapes maybe you could make. And we're going to start with your left hand. And what we're interested, we've done this a little bit. So as you take your left hand down, when do your knees start to bend? As you take your left hand down, when do your knees start to bend? How ready are they to begin to soften a little bit? Or do they want to? No? And notice, and again, so some of you, your shoulders go straight down. No? Some of you are turning your shoulders. So if you turn your shoulders to go down, if we can all sort of try that for a start. So as your left hand goes down, your left shoulder comes forward a little bit. Your right shoulder starts to go back. Which knee starts to move forward more? The left. Yeah? So just see if you can feel that. So they're both going to bend a little bit. Can you? Yeah? It's a little bit what we were doing in the lesson yesterday, one leg straightening. So just feel as you go down, left hand forward. If you left shoulder goes forward, right shoulder goes back. So what happens if you keep your shoulders level? Which knee is going to come forward then? Could it be the opposite knee? Huh? You could do both, but could you feel that it could be... This is contralateral. Yeah? It's just another way of exploring it. Yeah? Yeah. So feel the difference. What happens if my left hand goes down, right shoulder goes back, which knee begins to bend? If my left hand goes down and my shoulders stay more, then which knee begins to bend? So you can begin to feel through your torso these different organisations, and that they're all really important. I was saying to someone yesterday, talking about homologous, homolateral, contralateral, and in my experience with a lot of people, they get to contralateral and then can't go backwards. Can't go. Okay, try the same thing with your right hand. And just feel, can you feel that difference? What the organisation of what's happening in your upper part of your torso, how that influences. And maybe you might begin to see, is there something about, depending on whether you turn, what your neck has to do, what your head has to do. Does it have to adapt differently? Which one would allow your head to stay more easily looking or central? Shoulders straight. Yeah? The contralateral. Yeah? But again, what's important is your experience. Okay, so now if you imagine we've returned to your lawn bowl again, feeling, you can choose which hand you want to have it in at the beginning, but remember there's a weightedness to the bowl, no? And that will do something to your weight for most of us. Can you feel the difference if you hold the bowl and don't let your weight do anything? How heavy does the ball feel? And if and then if you just let the weight shift a little bit, what would happen to your perception of the weight of the ball, do you think? Okay, so you've got the ball in your hand, your weight shifted a little bit. Which knee would now be ready to bend forward and step a little bit? Would it be the leg on the same side or the opposite side? And you can do either. It's going to depend what your shoulders are doing, where you've shifted your weight to. Sorry, Karen? We'll get to that in a second. But where will the ball go? So if your shoulders are turning, is that going to maybe, if I do the same side, and my shoulders, where might that ball? And this is what bowlers do. That's how they can begin to direct where the ball's going to go. Yeah? But they have to have this adaptability through their shoulders and their pelvis and their weight shift and keeping their length. And the thing is, most of them, the good ones, wouldn't even know what they were doing. So, could you now begin to walk bowling the ball with you? Whichever hand you've chosen. So, you just bowl and then you take a step and you bowl and you take a step. Okay, let's add one more bit to the puzzle for some of you. It's really beautiful. Okay, so this time, as you're going down with one hand, you're just going down to the floor. As you're going down, you can choose left hand, right hand. You can choose both hands, whatever's easy. Feel, how we've been talking about small and tall, that you can get smaller and then you can get taller. Yeah? When you go first down, what are you doing? Would you be getting smaller or taller when you first start to bend down? Just feel what you do. So do it out of your experience. So does this come together as I go down? Or go apart? That first movement. Whatever you like. Yeah? Or you can just reach down with your hand. Whatever you like. What's the first shape you make? You get smaller. Just at the beginning. A lot of you are already going too far. At very beginning, your head's going down, you can take the bowl down if you want, and you get smaller. So, now feel, is there a point as you're going down, you're getting smaller, that all of a sudden it transforms into getting taller? Or do you stay small the whole way down? Because this is what we're interested in, this ability to change depending on what is needed. So maybe you feel that this, all of a sudden, all of this stuff we were talking yesterday about small and tall and why we wanted small, tall, small, tall, small, tall, small, tall. No? Is there a point as you're going down where somehow the direction all of a sudden changes and your head starts to go away from your pelvis, lengthen away from your pelvis again? Yay. I think there's many, many reasons, but that's definitely one of them that's a really powerful one, that they don't know how to change the shape of their torso. And that's, and that's what you'll discover as you go on. You have to be ready at a moment, that this is responsive all the time. So at any time, if you now go down and do your bowling with your hand again, off you go, bowling, bowling. So you're walking forward all the time. You're walking forward. Can you feel, when does your head pop up? What has to happen to let your head pop up? What's happened in your torso, though? What's happened Are you tall or small when your head pops up? So you're just playing around with your experience. Could you try the other hand? And just see what emerges with this hand. You know, don't think it. Feel it, sense it. It is something about this small tool that's present in this movement. This change from one to the other. So your belly at one point can get long. Your low belly can get long. And can you feel as you just keep to just at your speed, where do your feet point? What's the difference if it's a contralateral pattern where the opposite hand and foot are going, or if it's a homolateral pattern? What happens with the orientation of your feet? And again, you know, if you're getting tired, you can just do the beginning of the movement. Everything's in the beginning of the movement. So really seeing how these different patterns influence where we put our feet. You know, so, you know, as you're going walking now, you can really think about, why would someone walk like that? Why would someone walk like this? Oh, why would someone walk like this? Oh. Just to start observing, just to see, is there something? And again, not trying to understand it cognitively, just playing around. Okay, so now, could you come back to your mat? And reach both hands down and just feel what's involved. Does that curve change at all as you go down? Do you feel any sense that you might be smaller at one stage and then you get taller? And then feel when you're down there, is it possible to do small and tall with your both hands on the floor? Is it possible to do small and tall? That your head and your pelvis lengthen away from each other and then they come back toward each other and they lengthen away from each other. So there's a lot happening in knees going up and down to get it. Okay, so let's just make it easier, just like I did with Marissa yesterday. Huh? So there's a few chairs around, there's some rollers around, there's this table around, there'll be some stools over there. And just get a sense of what's the difference if I'm not as far down. Do you know what I mean? If I don't have to. If I don't have to have quite so much length in my arms and my legs. You can use a big roller if you want to lean your hands. You can use the steps. It's cosy, isn't it? So you're really looking for this little bit getting smaller where your head and your pelvis get, you're rounding, but your head and pelvis are actually getting closer together. And then you're lengthening out. So you're taking your head and your pelvis away from each other. So that you can begin to feel that your pelvis can begin to turn over your hip joints. So you get small and tall. Pelvis and head coming closer together and then reaching away from each other. Yeah, Vishal, yeah? Oh, she's obviously doing something wrong. It's easier on the floor. No, there's nothing wrong. It's just that it's easier for you on the floor.
Oh, okay.
And really feel, what do your knees do? So do you push your knees to push your pelvis back? Do you try and straighten your knees to push your pelvis back? So you're sort of still using the legs more to power the movement, which is absolutely fine. It's just being aware of what you're doing. Or could you feel that to take the pelvis back, your knees might actually bend a little bit more? Would that be a possibility? And again, so you're looking for that place, and I'll just do it on Yona because she's doing it so beautifully. Huh? So she gets, yeah? But now, it's not that she's gone past the length, getting tall. Do you know what I mean? Now she's actually come back and made herself short this way. Huh? So how does she find the point? And again, and then back, where she just gets to tall, where she just gets to long, before she starts shortening again. Huh? Because you can, obviously if you can shorten this way, you can also shorten that way. Huh? And what we're looking for you to find is where's long. No, between your head and your pelvis. Where for you do you feel that you get that distance, the long, the tall? Absolutely. You get taller. Beautifully put. So Anastasia, you just put it beautifully. When both the flexors and the extensors are in balance, both the same length, you're tall. So they're both doing something. to your mats. Small and something happen? Yeah. Because again, it's so easy for many of us to swing through tall. Huh? But where's the midpoint? Where's the zenith where I'm tall? And you know, for many of us, it's many approximations. Okay, so could you now, some of you want to rest, that's great. Those of you who don't want to rest, try your 4 points again and see, does it feel any different after doing that? And thinking about this, when you get down, how long can you be? How tall can you be? And some of you can get small in the back or small in the front. But where's tall for you at this moment? Okay. So you've got your points. So now let's play with if these are your 4 points or not. So if these are your 4 points, if you've found a place that is not just about stability, but it's about the ability to move as well, could you lift your right hand and your left foot away from the floor at the same time and down? Without holding your breath. Without holding your breath. So you might want to play around now with where your points are. Huh? So remember, the further apart they are, probably the more stable you're going to be. But if they get too far apart, one hand, the opposite hand and foot. And really, this is again first approximation of this. Can you feel that to do that, you're doing something with your torso? It's not just that I'm lifting my hand or foot, but I'm mobilising something in my torso to help lift. And if it's really difficult, Helen, do it on, you can do this, just leaning on the, anyone who it's difficult, do it on a chair. Feel free. Because it's more that you've just got weight on your hands and your feet. So just notice, if you do it, spread your attention, find less effort, let your head hang if you feel your neck starts to tighten. And you're just finding, if I can find ease here, where does the limb go back to? Does it go back to where I had it, or does it go to a different place? And then you can do the same hand and the same foot. See, what do you have to do that? What has to change shape in your torso? What can happen in the middle of you? And really notice, take as many rests as you like, but really notice, am I holding my breath? And if I hold my breath, where is it? Is it my belly that constricts? For most of us, it'll be the diaphragm, because your diaphragm will just come in to go, oh, stable, stable, don't breathe. That gives us more stability. If our diaphragm, it'll make us feel a bit more stable. So you're just finding Where are your 4 points? Where you feel that you could lift. Opposite hand and foot, or same hand and foot? How do you let your weight shift? So most of us, when we feel unstable, get smaller. No? Most of us, if we don't feel balanced, will get smaller. So what would happen if you thought, I'm going to get a little bit taller to lift? And again, if you're at your full length, that won't be easy. Okay, leave it. Have a walk around. That's plenty. And we'll do just a fraction more with small and tall. So what does your walking feel like after that? How's the work distributed through you? How much of you feels in your image at the moment? Just sensing. Okay, this is just a fun bit that Feldenkrais puts into this lesson that I really like. You don't need to do it. If you want to, could you get into a sprinter's position? Sprinter position. I'm just about to sprint. So I'm the starter, so that's not it, Carol. That's marathon. So where do they start? Is that where they start? Is that where they start? They start down. Yeah. So where do they start? They've got their feet in the starting blocks, yeah? Yeah, they're in the starting blocks, yeah? So they haven't actually really... Huh? So they're down on the starting blocks, and usually they're tripod. Huh? You never see them like this. Why tripod? What does... Yeah, they're there. Yeah, they're in tripod. Huh? So just feel the difference. Which one... How does that make a difference if you want to take off? You don't take off. Yeah? Can you feel the difference if your hand's in this position compared to tripod? What it does to your back, how it starts to bring your head up? Huh? Okay. So they're there. Then what's the next bit they do to get... So they says, ready? What do they set? Pelvis lifts. Can you feel at that point they're still a little bit small? Yeah? So where the power comes from is tall. So all of a sudden they just flip from small to tall and they're off. Huh? And you really see people who have trouble on the starting blocks, they don't get this. Your head's up because of what you've done with your hands, because it's helped to get the upper part of you ready. So just see, it just plays. Can you begin to feel that, how that's... Yeah, and so and then they just get tall and they're off. And this is where power comes from. It comes from being able to change your shape really quickly. Not being in one place and staying there, but this ability to really quickly change your shape. Woohoo! So this is where it gets fun, I think, to be a Feldenkrais practitioner, because someone comes and they want to get better at something, and you actually have to get on the floor and work out what would make that easier. Huh? And it's not an intellectual process. You actually have to get on the floor and go, or observe people and go, what would make that easier to do? I think the runner absolutely adapts the foot position. Yeah. And the length of their legs and their... Mm. No.
The points are adjustable.
Yeah, all along the... Yeah. Mm. Mm. So feel after doing that, is your walk different? Is there a little bit more power in your walk? Huh? So all these different walks. So there's not one right walk. What we want is this adaptability. Yeah. So we're going to take a quick break. Just a quick one. You're going to have another one, but a quick break, and then we're going to come back and do a bit.
So you're saying that start bending and power comes from getting into extension?
From taking the head and pelvis away from each other. Doesn't necessarily have to be extension. It's taking the head and pelvis away from each other.
So I was wondering, can the opposite also apply? That
You could be an extension to start with, where you're short, but it's the getting them to go away from each other.
spring.
It's the spring. So it doesn't matter if you're in extension, yeah? And then you get the...
That's fascinating.
Yeah?
That's so cool. It's like a wobble board.
That's a